Pretty impressive, isn't it? Hi, I'm Rebecca Harris, and this is OTC's new video conferencing room, and we thought we'd take this opportunity to show you around. We've got room for seating for 6, for an audience of up to 5, electronic whiteboard, time clocks, monitors, cameras, graphics camera, fax facilities and voice-activated microphones, and all operated from this one user-friendly remote control. The dramatic cost reductions made possible with the digitisation of networks have led to the growing demand for this service. Analogue video conferencing wasn't as popular, possibly because of the relatively high costs involved.
And all of these coupons and telephone calls are all being recorded in the WAN computer that we have.
Digital technology was just one topic in the 87-88 annual report video program. Did you see it? It was produced as part of the staff communication package, so if you haven't seen it and would like to, ask your supervisor or manager to arrange a screening. There's no time to reproduce the program here, but George Maltby summarised OTC's performance in a television interview.
OTC lays claim to being the government's best investment. Its pre-tax profit yesterday up 52% to $190 million. That's the operating profit. After tax, still a very reasonable rise of 29% to $103 million. George Maltby, the Managing Director, joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
Is this a fine launch from the status of being a statutory corporation to being a company?
I believe so, yes. We're certainly looking forward to that change, which we hope to get during the course of the current financial year.
It's the sort of performance that companies like to have before they float.
That's right. Well, I guess we're moving more into the commercial area and becoming a company, a wholly owned government company, of course. But I think it's a sure sign that we've been doing well and we'll do better, I believe, under the new arrangements.
All that, of course, is paving the way for OTC's Incorporation, which is not very far away now, but more on that later. In the next half hour or so, we've got everything from the transfer of operations between Moree and Sydney Earth stations to some rather colourful festivals that were sponsored by OTC in Queensland, and lots more besides. So, let's get on with the show. Moree was the site of OTC and Australia's first Earth station to provide commercial communication services via satellite way back in 1968. The station operated continuously for some 20 years and played a key role in Australia's telecommunications history. But that's all over now, thanks to the non-stop march of technology. Many hours of hard work were involved in dismantling the station, while leaving the large floor space in mint condition. Increased interference protection techniques allow Earth stations to be sited much closer to major population centres these days, providing higher quality and more cost-effective services. Moree was officially closed earlier this year, with operations being transferred to Sydney Earth Station at Oxford Falls. The occasion was a nostalgic one, as many OTC staff have been involved with the station over the past couple of decades.
Let me say straight away, to get rid of the sad bit, that it's hard to believe when you look back that in the next few weeks Moree Earth Station will no longer be the dynamic part of OTC which it's been for about 20 years or so.
In mid-August, a number of events marked the closing of Moree. Formal affairs for staff contributions to be recognised and to farewell the local community, and a less formal weekend where ex-Moree staff travelled from Sydney and Queensland to farewell the station in their own way.
Now, we had a guy here in the early days who was a bit of a rogue when it came to taking other people's food. Sandwiches out of the refrigerator and...
Tales of humorous events from years gone by kept everyone amused for several hours.
So what we did was we took a label off a Bounty Meatballs can and we arrow-lighted it to a can of power. Now, the only thing I don't know, and maybe Ben or someone could tell me this, Did Doherty ever find out, and how did he find out that he'd eaten power? Ben, can you elucidate?
No, I don't think anybody ever told me.
A documentary video program highlighting Moree's contribution to Australia's telecommunications history and development is being put together by Public Affairs. It should be ready for distribution in the new year. The end of another era in communications history happened at Paddington recently when the MRS system, which provided such a valuable service with the transmission of telegraph traffic for 20 years or so, was cut over to the new message gateway. It was the setting for another wake, with Managing Director George Maltby performing the official system depowering.
It's a sad day for that, but it marks the inevitable rush of the business we're in.
The final entry was recorded at 28 minutes past 4 on Monday the 19th of September. While on the subject of history, has anyone not yet visited the Telecommunications exhibition, Settlement to Satellites at Paddington? Overseas staff and those of you in Broome, Esperance and Hobart have a good excuse. But for Sydney-based staff, the exhibition provides an opportunity for a look into the history of telecommunications and also the future.
Dark night in London, Auberon War got a telephone call.
The exhibition was officially opened in July by Supreme Court Judge Michael Kirby.
Would you come to Senegal to deliver an address? He said, seeing the palms of Senegal swaying in his mind's eye. Yes, of course I will. And the questioner said there's only two problems. First, the address must be in French. And second, the subject we've assigned is breastfeeding. Now, Auberon War was a man of many parts, but he had never specialised in that topic before. And he was curious and a little surprised, but as you would all understand, the prospect of an economy Air Senegal ticket to the west coast of Africa was so seductive for him that he had to accept the invitation. And so he sat down, and in his schoolboy French, with a little bit of assistance from his friends, he laboured on the speeches. I've laboured on these pearls tonight. Breastfeeding in history, breastfeeding in art, the philosophy of breastfeeding, breastfeeding and its effects on contraception, breastfeeding and AIDS, it was all there. And then he got to Senegal, and in the great hall of the people, he rose in his place to deliver this carefully crafted monument to breastfeeding. And he was a little surprised not to see a lot of white coats about. And then you will imagine his discomfiture when, as he rose, his president said to him, "We are so looking forward to your address on press freedom."
There are literally scores of exhibits tracing 100 years of telecommunications history and a video phone which provides a tantalising glimpse into the future.
I wonder if you can find the picture here. You and myself perhaps standing near the Sydney Bay.
Yes, I can see the picture, and I think you're the big one. Is that
Up.
No, you've had it too easy.
Left. Down. Public attendance at the exhibition has been encouraging, and justifiably so. The whole thing is well worth a visit. Not as modern as a video phone, but certainly providing Australia's school children with a hands-on look at international communications, is the Phone a Friend project, which featured on Townsville regional television recently.
Making phone calls overseas free of charge is something some people would dream about. Pupils of St Mary's were given that opportunity this morning when they were patched through to St Joseph's School in the Solomon Islands. The 30-minute telephone hookup allowed the children to swap stories about where they live and ask questions important to them.
Do you have high school there?
One of the Townsville children asked what sort of traditional dancing the children of the Solomons do. After some laughter from the other end of the phone, the answer came back. We do breakdancing here. While this indicates how close the two cultures probably are, there were some communication breakdowns, especially when it came to one name.
What's your name? Lydia Abdurrahman. Lydia Abdurrahman.
Lydia?
Yes.
Lydia, what's your name again, please?
Lydia Abdurrahman.
Abdurrahman, is that right?
Yes.
OTC has offered 10 Townsville schools the opportunity to take part in similar telephone links in a campaign called Phone a Pacific Friend. OTC will also play a vital role in getting news of the Festival of Pacific Arts to all corners of the globe, with 200 journalists, photographers and camera crews expected to arrive in Townsville within the next week.
A major landmark in Townsville is Castle Hill, which houses several VHF aerials for OTC's maritime communication station at Pallarinda. OTC riggers are regular visitors around the stations, performing their vital repair and maintenance work. The first maritime station in Townsville became operational 75 years ago, and the building is still there, providing older operators with memories of times gone by. The new station is home for a dozen or so OTC staff who are justifiably proud of their increasing traffic load, as we discovered when talking with Acting Manager Wes Coman.
In 1986, we were the first station in Australia to breach the 20,000 minutes for the month. And as you can see, we're still going up. Last year, our maximum was 27,000, and we expect this year another 30% on the top. We have at the moment a roster of 9 people on, a 9-man roster, what we call a 9-man roster. And during the day, we will have 8 people on. That is 3 in the mornings, 2 for a very short time in the afternoon, then 3 in the evening, and that peters out to 1 man from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m.
Coinciding with Townsville Radio's 75th birthday was the 5th Festival of Pacific Arts, co-sponsored by OTC International Limited. The festival was a spectacular celebration of Pacific culture. It was attended by more than 20 national delegations, including Australian Aborigines as the hosts. Given OTC's business, it was appropriate that our sponsorship was primarily concerned with providing worldwide telecommunications links for local and overseas media representatives.
I was going to cover a number of housekeeping matters, but as we have the Minister Abil, Minister for Home Affairs, and with a special portfolio of culture, I thought it very appropriate that perhaps...
Tonight we're celebrating two occasions. The first is the Festival of Pacific Arts and also the 75th birthday of OTC Townsville Radio. OTC is very much involved in both of these events. Firstly, the 5th Festival of Pacific Arts is a magnificent cultural celebration, and OTC is proud to be principal sponsor of the festival.
An OTC International hosted function at the festival provided OTCI representatives with the opportunity of consolidating friendships and business relations with delegates from several Pacific nations, an important market for them. A little further south was Expo 88 in Brisbane. This bicentennial event was a tremendous success, attracting visitors from around the world. OTC had a presence in several pavilions with country direct telephones and in the popular Swiss pavilion with OTC data access.
The idea of the computer corner here is to give information about Switzerland. And OTC and the Swiss PTT, they have sponsored us a satellite link, so we can tap into databases in Switzerland. So I can actually give information about nearly any subject. The information is vast.
Another Brisbane festival is Warana, the annual multicultural affair that takes place in front of huge crowds, their numbers being swollen even further this year from the thousands of Expo visitors.
Of course, an event of this nature could not happen without the generous sponsorship of OTC.
OTC has sponsored the Warana All Nations Festival of Song and Dance for 13 years. It provides OTC with exposure to the business community and Brisbane office staff with the opportunity of meeting local commerce leaders in a relaxed setting, as was seen at the post-festival function jointly hosted by OTC and the Warana Organising Committee. Brisbane office staff, or the Queensland State Office as it's now called, moved into new premises not too long ago. It's very much a sales and marketing environment, as manager Peter Chalesky explained.
There's tremendous potential in two industries, though. It's definitely in the resources industries through the mining operations up here, and also what's happening in Papua New Guinea through gold mining and copper mining as well, which we're keeping well and truly across, because it's important that we provide these companies with efficient communications with the PTC in Papua New Guinea. And most of these organisations are based here in Queensland, so that's one particular area that we're working very, very closely with. But the predictions and projections in respect of the tourist industry is right on par, that Queensland is the tourist haven of Australia and will continue to grow ginormously. And we are working very closely with what they call the Queensland Tourist and Travel Corporation in providing them with network services so as they can build their business, and in turn that we can benefit from that as well.
Queensland office staff keep close links with customers. They also provide facilities for customer training in the use of OTC Dialcom and other services.
We've got our own targets, and we are getting close to achieving those targets. And in fact, in unit sales for a number of toll-free services that were sold, John Appleyard was the top salesperson in Australia.
The telephone service provides more than 80% of OTC's revenue, and that situation is likely to continue for some time. But electronic mail is fairly well accepted now, and it was OTC's Minerva service that started the ball rolling several years ago. OTC and Telecom subsequently formed a joint venture to provide national and international electronic messaging with a service called Keylink. With the Minister's 25th of May Telecommunications policy statement earlier this year, OTC was allowed for the first time to compete in the Australian value-added services market. This decision led to a review of Keylink and a decision that it wasn't feasible to operate a joint venture service and compete in the same market. The result was an amicable dissolution of the Keylink partnership. OTC now offers a new service called OTC Dialcom. Telecom have retained the name Keylink for their service, so anyone who has Keylink mentioned on business cards should order new ones from supply section. They will automatically change Keylink to read Dialcom. Many of you will have read in transit about the formation of a new business unit called the OTC Enhanced Communications Group. It was established to exploit the value-added services market in which OTC is now allowed to compete within Australia as well as overseas. The Enhanced Communications Group has gone for it in a big way with the launch of OTC Intelnet, a database mediation service. This means that instead of having to register with each individual data bank, users of OTC Intelnet are able to select from any one of some 850 databases around the world, provided by 13 separate vendors. It's a true one-stop shop service. One registration fee, one password, only one set of bills to pay in Australian dollars, and from early next year, only one common command language to use.
Well, OTC Intelnet is unique in Australia. It's the only database mediation service that is available in Australia. A database mediation service provides an intelligent interface between the user and the databases. No longer does the user have to learn sometimes awkward command languages. They only need to subscribe to OTC's service and not having to subscribe to a number of database vendors throughout the world. It provides a menu-driven system which is simple to use, and effectively people coming in off the street, if they have their information needs, they can be satisfied using this service.
Launching this service to the media and potential customers, the Enhanced Communications Group asked Katie Blake, editor of Online Currents, to explain its value. They couldn't have selected a more enthusiastic supporter.
The only organisation in Australia who can market this effectively, the only organisation with the marketing skills, the technological skills, the nous, in fact, was OTC. And I set about persuading them to pick it up in my own very subtle way. I think you'll probably agree that for online searching to be available to people directly who are non-information professionals, this is the way to go. It gives me enormous pleasure to launch Intelnet. I'm sure you're going to be very impressed with it when you see it.
I guess you're wondering how on earth those pictures got there. Well, you all know we provide worldwide communication services via satellite and cable. The Tasman cable between Australia and New Zealand showed up as faulty recently, less than a kilometre from the Bondi Beach landfall. The divers who located the fault brought back some underwater video footage that indicates quite graphically how exposed the cables are to trawlers and underwater obstacles when close to shore. This particular fault was located in the sea earth, so it was rectified by converting to the nearby compact cable's sea earth. Compact, of course, has not been used since the Anscan cable was brought into service. Our other major communications medium is via satellite. In fact, some 60% of Australia's international communications presently travel that way. The Intelsat VI series is presently under construction for launch next year. The contract for the supply of the Intelsat VII series has recently been awarded to Ford Aerospace, who provided us with this picture. It's interesting to note that the 6 series is a drum-shaped design with the solar panels around the body, while the 7 series resembles the present Intelsat V satellites with the solar panels on the wings, which are deployed when the satellite is safely in orbit. Communications technology is a fascinating subject, as many engineers and technical staff will confirm. In fact, OTC's technical staff invariably feature as award winners in the Improvements and Suggestions scheme because of their keen interest in the job. Such was the case earlier in the year when Chairman John Matthews announced awards to technical staff from Broadway, Paddington and Melbourne exchanges, totalling some $15,000.
Thank you for coming to this Improvements and Suggestions Board presentation, which is really a landmark for the Board. Today we're making awards totalling nearly $15,000 to 12 staff members for 5 suggestions.
George Maltby did the honours by presenting cheques to reward the efforts and ingenuity of everyone involved. The Melbourne Telecommunications Centre at Scoresby houses Australia's first fully digital telephone exchange. It was a festive family occasion recently when staff celebrated their first full year of operation. More family fun was the order of the day when Paddington opened its doors to OTC staff, families and friends for an open day and barbecue. Clowns and painted faces were also very much in evidence when the new head office building opposite Sydney's Hyde Park was opened for tours by staff, families and friends earlier this year. Many workplaces were open to the visitors with a variety of attractions.
3, 2, 1, yours. Okay, take from the luggage.
The research and development laboratories were very popular with the more inquisitive. State-of-the-art technology was definitely the order of the day. Under normal circumstances, visitors to head office are fully screened at the security desk, but we shouldn't assume that undesirable characters can't possibly get into the building. No system is foolproof. In OTC's increasingly competitive environment, it's more important than ever that everyone thinks of security at all times. That includes blocking away computer disks and diskettes that could contain commercially confidential information of value to competitors. And there is always, of course, the possibility of petty theft.
Yeah. Yeah, it's here. I'll bring it down now. Bye.
No one wants to suffer the trauma of losing personal valuables from the workplace, and it's a fairly simple matter to safeguard them when leaving the office, even for a short time. All it takes is for each of us to realise that security is everyone's responsibility. I mentioned Incorporation at the beginning of the show. It's not long now to Christmas, and only a few days more before the 1st of January, the scheduled date for OTC to officially gain company status. The incorporation process is quite a complex one, with many issues subject to negotiation with unions and government alike. We've invited General Manager of Corporate Division, Chris Von Willer, to give us some background to the mechanics of the process and tell us some of the things we can expect to happen during and after incorporation. First of all, Chris, could we run through the agenda since the May 25 policy statement?
May 25 was when the government brought down its policy statement as to what the industry should be, and since then there's been a lot of activity. In a sense, there's really 2 agendas. On the one hand, there's the reform of the industry itself, the establishment of the regulator, Austel, the definition of the monopoly powers for OTC and telecom, the competitive areas to be defined and spelled out. But the other agenda has been the reform of OTC itself, the process of converting OTC to a public company.
What elements are involved?
There's several parallel elements. The objective is to have OTC established as a public company under the Companies Act by the 1st of January 1989. Now, for that to happen, several things have to be in place. Firstly, legislation had to be drafted, and that's now complete. It's in the House of Representatives, and by the end of November, that should be through the Parliament. Then there's the definition of the Memorandum and Articles of Association for OTC as a company, which is necessary under the Companies Code. That process is at least through to the final draft form. The corporate plan for OTC, which has to be submitted to the government, that's complete and in the government's hands. The revaluation of the assets and the cleaning up of the balance sheet for OTC so it can make a new start on the 1st of January as a company. And finally, there's the process of consultation with the various unions of OTC to agree, to consult and to agree on a set of terms and conditions that will be appropriate to the new company. Fundamental to that process is the preservation of continuity of all the employees of OTC, so that people working in OTC as a commission will automatically transfer to OTC as a company, OTC Limited. Then there's the terms and conditions of the staff, and the intention there is to negotiate a new and commercial set of conditions which, as a package, are no less favourable than those conditions which we have today. And that requires, of course, a process of consultation with the unions to make sure that we get that right.
Where does everything stand now?
At the end of November, we're proceeding towards the 1st of January as the target date. All those elements have to be brought together. The legislation has to be enacted. The Memorandum and Articles of Association have to be agreed by the shareholder, which is the government. And all the conditions of the staff have to be agreed and finally ratified by the Conciliation and Arbitration Commission.
What are the initial effects we can expect from incorporation?
Assuming that the target date of the 1st of January is met and that OTC is, if you like, reborn as a company, OTC Limited, on the 1st of January, we'll receive a lot of commercial freedoms that we don't currently have. And that's the intention of the government in moving us towards a company, is to give us those freedoms, to remove many of the controls which they've exercised historically, and to allow us to be more competitive and more responsive to our environment. With that, of course, carries the accountability for performance, that having been given the freedoms and the new commercial charter, the government will expect our performance to continue as it has before and even to improve in the new environment.
So what sort of future can we look forward to?
I think the future continues to be very buoyant for OTC. Our performance to date has been very good. We're one of the best performing of all the government authorities. We are today fully commercial in that we pay taxes, we pay a dividend to our shareholder, the government. And as the future environment becomes more competitive, I think the benefits from working in OTC will be even greater than they are today in terms of job satisfaction and the challenge.
Thanks, Chris. Well, that's almost it for this show. It only remains to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll leave you with a montage of pictures which, while colourful in themselves, didn't quite make it to this show because of time constraints. Have a nice Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year.